Welcome to the first session of the spring conference. This is a small room. We are using the mics because we are also recording this session. This idea, this concept, what we're going to talk about is an ongoing conversation, and this is one of the input points that we want to have, but we do anticipate some additional opportunities for feedback. We want really all the members of APA Utah to have the opportunity to weigh in and provide some feedback, provide some thoughts, some ideas. So this session is entitled Intentional Governance. It is a session about APA Utah and our organization and the journey we are currently on and where we plan on going. I guess I didn't introduce myself, Jason Boal, current president for APA Utah. I am an urban planner for Snell and Wilmer. It's a law firm in Salt Lake. I've previously worked in the public sector in Idaho and Ada County, Teton County. I can't remember. Latah County, that was the other one. And then Heber City is actually where I got my start in planning. And so about 4 years ago, I went to work for Snell and Wilmer. And doing this presentation with me is Meagan Booth.
My name is Meagan Booth. I am Vice President of Utah APA, and I also am a Principal Planner for Salt Lake City in their Planning Division. I previously worked interned at Taylorsville City, worked first job in Holiday City, and then Farmington before I moved on to Salt Lake. So worked in a lot of different sizes of government. So this presentation is really about our intention and thinking about the membership, and we really want it to be an open conversation. So if any time during our presentation you have a question or comment, just feel free to raise your hand. I'll be a runner and I'll bring you the mic so we can capture your question.
Yes, we do want this to be a conversation, not just us up here presenting to you. So real quickly, I guess to provide some background, and or if you missed the opening introduction, we do have our officers. So currently, APA Utah has 4 elected officers. Every 2 years, we elect a president and vice president, and then on alternating years, we elect a secretary and treasurer. And those are, like I said, 2-year terms. And then the past president stays on as an officer as well. And so there are 5 officers in APA Utah. There we go. We have the officers, and then we have board members. And these are our current board members. They generally chair a committee. Our bylaws identify a list of, there's 11 to 15 different committees. Some of these roles and board members match those committees in the current bylaws, some do not. But generally, the board members' roles, we have a citizen planner liaison, we have a programs chair, we have the Writers Bureau and Communications chair, the legislative chair for the legislative committee, a student chair, student liaison, and then awards committee chair, and then we do have co-chairs on the legislative committee with Zach coming on recently and Alyssa as well. Anything you'd like to add?
Speaking.
Oh, did I skip professional development?
He's right here.
He's right here. Speak. So, I was reading in line and I missed that one. Because you need no introduction, Bruce. That's why. So we have a professional development officer, Bruce Parker, as well, is a board member. We have coordinators and other positions that the board identifies and fill as needed to take on certain responsibilities. So our emerging planners group, we have a chapter historian, and then professional affiliations. So somebody that helps us with partnerships with other organizations. So this generally is, well, I guess one more slide. We also have area reps. And currently there are 8 area reps that we have throughout the state, with one of those seats or positions being vacant. So that's the board. We have undertaken, so starting last 2020, January 2024, APA Utah wanted to take a look at the bylaws and review our bylaws. There are concerns, some inconsistencies, which happens in organizations as you operate. You evolve and kind of change. And there were some things in the bylaws that we just wanted to get cleaned up. That effort is continuing. And that's really kind of what we want to talk about today, is the organization moving forward, how it works, how it functions, but most importantly, how it serves you and how it helps you and provides you with what you need. And it's called intentional governance. It's interesting. So there's a small group that is working on this idea and this concept of what our board structure, what our organizational structure should look like. And rather organically, in the conversation, this idea of being intentional came out. And it really resonated with me, because I think that, and ultimately I think we agree that we want to be intentional about what we're doing. We want to be intentional about how we're organized so that we can provide a better product. We can be an organization that's looking forward and growing and responding to the needs of our membership. And so, again, that idea of being intentional is really where we're coming from. We want this to be a well-vetted, a well-thought-out process and result when we land on a solution and a path forward. Did you have anything you wanted to add about that? No? Okay. I just pulled some quotes about being intentional in our lives. And I think that John C. Maxwell, intentional living is about living on purpose with purpose. And I think that's where we as an organization want to be. We want to be fulfilling that purpose with purpose. So not just existing to exist, but understanding why we exist and moving forward as an organization is the goal and the hope.
So I'll take this slide. So at the beginning of the year, Jason kind of set some ideas on what our mission would be, but this is what has come out, is encourage and foster the principles of visioning and planning for a better future, provide a wide range of educational opportunities for professional planners, citizen planners, and others involved in shaping our communities, and represent APA Utah chapter members in matters related to the national organization of the American Planning Association. And on that note, I want to just kind of give a little bit of a shout out that what we're doing is being recognized on a national level. We're going to be hosting the Legislative Summit here. We hosted the Chapter President's Council here. We're one of the only chapters that does 2 conferences a year. And also our leadership has been involved on a national level. I also serve as the Director of Chapter Engagement for the Women in Planning Division. Tibby serves on the Chapter President's Council, right? Executive Committee. So we have play into things on a national level. And that's kind of where we're going. We want to make sure we can support that.
Yeah, so this is our mission. This is our mission statement. This is what's in the bylaws. This is why we exist. Does this, as members...
Is this new?
No.
This has been in there all this long time.
Correct.
How long has the chapter existed?
Oh, I knew I was going to get this question. No. Yeah, but I believe it existed in a slightly different form going back to the 70s. A while. A bit. Just a bit. And we do, so our bylaws, our current bylaws were adopted in 2015. So they're 10 years old. There has been talk, and like we've seen drafts that were talked about but weren't necessarily adopted in the last 10 years. So we are working off a set of bylaws that's 10 years old. All right. There you go, May 2015. So 10-year anniversary. Yeah, this is where we are. Yeah, and this is, again, the purpose, the mission statement is in those 2015 bylaws.
And our treasurer isn't here, but he would say like a lot of the updates that we need to do are to become consistent with state law in the way that we run a nonprofit and how we do our financials too.
Yeah. So we have, in realizing this is kind of a conversation, so we are jumping around a little bit. But the work we're doing on the bylaws, so the board has talked and looked at and discussed some changes to the bylaws. We've sent draft bylaws to APA. APA National takes a look at our bylaws and provides feedback. And then we've also enlisted some pro bono legal help as well to review the bylaws to make sure we're meeting those state statutes, because it was identified that we want to make sure these things are buttoned up in accordance with state law. This is the current structure. This slide looks a lot different up there. It's a lot busier than it did previously. One of the things I want to point out, in fact, I think Meagan was like, let's get rid of this. And I was like, no, I want to keep this in here. I enjoy the chaos it brings. So in looking at our current bylaws, these are the different committees that are identified in our current bylaws. These are there were 5 regions identified in the bylaws. We have seen, in fact, the board had a conversation earlier in the year, how even this structure may not make complete sense and that maybe we need to make some adjustments to it. And so the issue we run into is we have these bylaws, which are our founding documents, our guiding documents, which we have to operate in accordance with. And so in order to change our area reps, we have to change our bylaws. And to change our bylaws, we have to rewrite them and then send them to the membership for the membership to vote and approve or ratify the changed bylaws. So the board's talked about how maybe a better approach than having all of this detailed and specific information in the bylaws is to have a set of bylaws that outlines the general structure, the general concept of the organization, how it works, and refer to and utilize a chapter policy guide or chapter manual that really outlines specific responsibilities and specific roles so that we can be flexible in the future and make changes when the board sees it's appropriate to make changes, such as dividing out our area reps. So rather than going through a long process of modifying the bylaws, sending to the membership, we would just modify our policy guide or handbook in the future, and the board would do that.
Would that be something to the effect of, the bylaws state that we divide Utah into a number of areas as per the handbook instructions in section 52.3 or whatever section it is?
Yeah, I think,
And that section can be updated as needed, but the bylaws say that this is how we do things.
exactly. Yeah, the general concept is the bylaw says APA Utah focuses efforts in specific areas in regions throughout the state.
Under the direction of a regional coordinator,
Yep.
their responsibilities and how many of them in building areas are outlined.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Any
I was just going to add, though, when we started going through this structure and outlining positions and looking at what board members and committee members do, we found a lot of overlap in the positions, but we also found a couple of our board members were doing, a little bit, I'm going to use the word overwhelmed because that's true. And so I started taking, I think the next slide is the crack at the handbook to try to start identifying, what is our executive committee voting members, who are chairs and voting members, who are there to assist but maybe not a voting member, and then how we conduct our board meetings, and further getting into, our internal policies too. So our board guidelines, how long people are in office, and then how we fill positions. But we just noticed that we kind of needed to look at our entire structure. So.
Yeah. So I think what started as our bylaws need to be kind of updated and tweaked, and that we've kind of come to the realization that if we're going to do this and do it right, we really need to take a step back and examine almost everything and figure out how it should make sense. So going back to the previous bylaws and who votes, our current bylaws identify the region reps and say they're not board members in one section, and then in another section it says every action by the board is to be voted on by the area reps, and it's not clear if they are board members, if they're not board members, why they're voting, what their vote, do they count towards the quorum. And so just trying to get rid of that ambiguity and trying to make sure it's clear. Anybody who picks up the bylaws, reads any section, it makes sense in comparison with the other sections.
Yeah, so just back to like the name of this session, we realized we really needed to do some intentional governance of Utah APA. So I think we can go to the next one.
Yeah.
So do you want to?
Sure. So one of the things that we looked at is, or we're currently looking at, again, nothing is resolved, nothing is finalized. This is an ongoing conversation. And
Yeah, we had meetings this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in the beginning of this.
Yes. And so we thought this was a really good opportunity to kind of daylight some of these ideas and concepts and get some feedback as we're working through the process. One of the things that we've talked about is, okay, we kind of know what the purposes of APA Utah is, but we need to understand how it functions and how it functions for the members. And what do members, why do you join? Why do we join? What is our
What is
path?
your journey?
What is our journey in the organization? And so this is just a simple diagram that we've kind of talked about in identifying new members with students, emerging professionals, commissioners, our citizen planners, and then moving to Utah. And then kind of progressing along this axis in being able to find mentors or find a mentor through our mentorship program, which we're getting up and going. Attending our events, such as a conference, having opportunities to pursue professional development, and pursue AICP. And then this idea and concept of, we have committees, but maybe the way we're looking at committees needs to be adjusted. Instead of calling everything a committee, maybe we really have different things. Maybe we have interest groups or divisions, as National calls it,
Yeah.
or Kabbalahs, or whatever you want to call these groups with similar ideas and similar interests.
I'll just jump in that we've had, for example, feedback on some of our surveys that we really need a transportation planning interest group. Yeah. Women in planning would be an interest group. The book club may be an interest group, more like a social aspect of why you're part of this organization, and providing opportunities to join an interest group after you become a chapter member to keep you engaged and networking. I feel like I'll just say my journey was pretty. I was a student, then I became a professional, then pursuing AICP. Continuing to pursue AICP. And then joining various interest group really is what got me super involved and interested in being involved in APA. And then I've been lucky to have been asked to be a delegate. So then I joined Legislative Task Force and these specific work groups. So if you want, we can talk about task force. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, going back to this idea, right now we have committees and we're trying to divide it out. So we have these special interest groups, but then we also have these groups that get together that work on a specific item. Awards. Our awards program, it opens in the spring, it's done in the fall at the conference. It's really one task. And is that really a committee, or should we call it a task force? We have some other things that come up. I'm going to talk about what we're going to hear tomorrow. Tomorrow, we've been asked to help with the State of Utah Housing Plan and provide some very specific feedback from a planner's perspective. That's a specific task that we as APA Utah have before us. Does it make sense to have a committee, or should we just put together a task force that we create for a purpose, and once it accomplishes its purpose, in essence, it's done. And so that's kind of the second group. So we have the special interest groups, the task force, and then we do have committees. But committees are those groups that are always, there's always a need. They're always working on something. And these special interest groups and or task forces may fall under a committee. So for example, professional development. That's a goal. That's in our mission statement. That's something we're always going to be working on. And so we need a committee that is always engaged in that work, for example. Communications are how we're communicating, improving how we're communicating is something that is ongoing and it needs to happen, whether it's our email blasts, our social media, our newsletters. Those are things that are continual. Our new forum. I was going to plug that. Yes, the forum. So those are things that kind of fall under the committee category.
And then we kind of also see this as like a path to run for the board or to be on the executive committee, and how we could engage our members and encourage them to get involved.
So we've kind of danced around it. This is really what we are working on. Understanding our organizational structure. How is the work divided amongst the board, the chairs, the committees, the groups, and the volunteers and the general membership? How are we getting everybody involved who wants to be involved to get the work done? And how are we making involvement from the membership easy and effective? We're also talking about the committee structure, regrouping what makes sense, where are there duplicate efforts, where does coordination need to happen versus where does the responsibilities need to be placed with a single group.
We're also looking at committees that might actually just be missing. So we'll get into that on the next slide.
Yeah. Board structure. Overall, is the way we are organized at the board level the most effective and efficient way? Is there an opportunity to change the structure so that the general membership, instead of electing a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, that the membership elects board members, that we have 7, 5, 9 elected seats, and that there's a 3-year term or a 2-year term with a rotation so that the leadership, the general board leadership is all elected. And I think the next slide talks about it. But as of right now, we have those 4 elected positions, and then everybody else is appointed by the board, which may be elected or may be appointed. And then, yeah, so and this gets into the parliamentary versus presidential system. This is just kind of a general idea and vision of how we're seeing things working together with our bylaws, the handbook, authority, our staff, Nikki, our standing committees, task force. We're trying to get it all to interplay and work.
I don't want to interrupt your thought there, Jason, but
No,
I'm
I was done.
curious if it's mostly based on national structure. Like, are other chapters, wildly different than Utah chapters?
Excellent question. So APA does not, national does not dictate how you're structured. There are a variety of different ways chapters are structured. One of the things that has been a big part of the conversation is how are nonprofits in general organized, as opposed to how are APA chapters. So trying to expand our knowledge and understanding of what type of organization we are and how governance from that perspective may make sense.
Yeah, we're working with, we have a consultant, what's her name? Kelly, that's been helping us. She has expertise in nonprofit governance structure to take us through this process, and these diagrams are from our meetings. It's national level, typically probably runs the same as us in most chapters as we are now, but it doesn't mean that there are chapters out there that have moved to a board structure. So really, that's kind of what we're looking for feedback on.
Yeah, and I think what we found, Megan mentioned at the beginning that we do a lot. APA Utah does a lot when you look at it from the national scale in comparison to other chapters. And so that's why we're trying to figure out what makes sense for us. How do we continue doing the great things that have been done and have been started and build on those, and also build our organization and provide better product for our membership. So this is kind of going back to the committees, task force, interest groups. So we've kind of, the concept that we've talked about is under the standing committees, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's why we have.
I was having a hard time reading it, and I'm right here. Yeah.
So the standing committees, we would have professional development and or programs. We had communications, admin and finance.
That's a new one. I'm going to point out all the new ones.
Yeah. Partners and affiliations, membership, and legislative. And I think some of these responsibilities we have, but it hasn't necessarily been included in a committee form like this.
I'll take the next one for task force. So like for task force, those are kind of our temporary as needed committees during the year. So awards, we were advised to do an audit. So we create our budget every year, and then we have to report out to national, but we also need to be auditing that for, we recently changed to where the executive committee for now has like credit cards. So we didn't used to do that. We used to write a check for everything. So we have finance is very important. We need to pay a little more attention to that. So we'll be doing an audit. Nominating, we want to promote FAICP, AICP, and we want to promote nominating people to positions. So that, and then conference planning twice a year, and then sponsorships, because as Jason said this morning, it's, you know, we are a nonprofit and we do rely heavily on those sponsorships. And then, do you want me to take the next one?
Sure.
Okay, interest groups are more going to be like our social kind of groups, or but we definitely want to elevate the past presidents. We'd like to have a group specifically for them. Areas and regions would be one, emerging planners. I think I mentioned Women of Planning Book Club, AICP study group would kind of fall into that. Transportation, we're getting a lot of interest from students. And then also Scott Hill is doing such a great job with her citizen planners, but we definitely want to have elected officials, commissioners, and planners to have like a specific social group they could join with in Utah IPA.
Yeah, and I think it's, I mean, as we talk about it, we define these as social groups, but I mean, it's not necessarily that they're just meeting, hanging out, and socializing. It's that they have similar interests and are working on towards a similar goal. And so, I mean, that's where we've struggled in how to define that.
Yeah, because we don't want to call it divisions, because divisions already exists under national.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Any thoughts, questions so far?
I have a comment.
Please.
Your AICP study group, isn't that more like a task force? Or am I thinking under the old AICP exam where it was, or is it still twice a year? Okay, still twice a year. So that's more, in my eyes, that should be more in the blue, in the task force, in that usually they prep for that in preparation for the upcoming exam. Just a thought.
No, and that's
good feedback.
yeah, that's really good feedback. And that's, I guess, and that's the thing where I mean, on these calls and these meetings, we all have different perspectives, and I think but we want to be intentional, and we want to make sure it makes sense and have those conversations of, okay, why is it here and not over here? And so that's an excellent thought. Thank you.
Jason, and thank you very much for this. This is a humongous task, as you're very much aware. So I wanted to publicly thank you and everyone involved in this process. It seems to me, though, that we may be mixing and matching a little too much. We've got the bylaws, and then we've got a manual somewhere. The definitive thing would be, what is the rubric or the evaluative criteria we're using to put things in the bylaws and then move other things over into a manual? I would hope we can get the bylaws done fairly quickly if we know what that measure is, how we divide it, because they're going to be fairly set in stone, and the only way we change those is with the vote of the membership. How it's been explained here is that the manual could be fairly amenable and flexible and change as the board determines. So my suggestion is be clear on the rubric of what drops into the bylaws and what goes into the manual. And once we have that established, it should go fairly quickly. Fingers crossed. Hope.
Yeah, and Bruce, I agree 100%. And I mean, if you recall, as the board, we have looked at some draft bylaws. We kind of got the thumbs up. We've been waiting on APA feedback because APA has their own perspective, national, of what needs to be in the bylaws, and then our legal review as well. And so those are two guiding points on that determination between the bylaws and the handbook.
Nicole, does this run till 3? Okay, we only have 10 minutes. We gotta go.
10 minutes? Okay.
I think we don't
should
need
we?
to go. No.
Okay. Well, we'll just go back. So real quick, just an idea of how the task force and committees interwork with the groups.
Yeah, we definitely want to get support for chairs of those groups. So that's where you could see, like, maybe we'd have a minimum of 3 on each committee to make sure those chairs have support they need.
Leadership selection, we alluded to this before, presidential system like we currently have where the membership elects president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer for 2-year terms, and then every other position is appointed, versus a parliamentary system where the board or the membership elects 5 to 9 board members, and then among those board members, they would assign the responsibilities of basically the chairs, maybe not necessarily being the chair, but overseeing the chairs in the operational tasks associated with that. All right, we have questions. We're using Slido.
And you have answers. No, I'm just kidding.
So if you wouldn't mind, we're experimenting with this. This is the first time I've used it. Grab the QR code. We have some questions. Unfortunately, it only lets you answer an essay form with a minimum of 150. I'm just kidding. Okay, so question 1. Oh, yeah.
Is it not? Oh, if you have to, go to slido.com and then just enter the code if the QR code's not working.
I think it comes up again. Are you guys able to get in? All right, we got some. So it does work on for some. All right, we good? So question 1. Do you have any thoughts on the leadership structure? So, and I guess think about it, from somebody who may be interested in running for a board position. Would it be more enticing to run as a board member or as secretary, treasurer, president, vice president? And then also think of it from a membership perspective. You know, would you like to elect a group that is responsible for the organization, or those individual positions for the position?
I assume in both cases the voting is staggered. Right? You're not voting the entire board, you're not voting the entire executive group at once.
Correct, yeah. So as of right now, we elect president, vice president. So this is my first term. Tippy was president for 2 years before me. And then with a board structure, depending on how many, it may be that there's 3 election cycles, and so a third of the board is elected each year.
So, for example, this is my second term, and there's a 2-term limit as vice president. So if I wanted to be involved, I would either need to run for president, or I would either, if it was have to run for a position on the board, if it was to go to option B. So.
All right.
Ooh, it's getting close. Wow.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I think this is, I find this encouraging to know that we're exploring ideas that we're not going down a definite wrong path, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. So question 2, what social, special interest, and professional groups would you like to participate in? So either that we are currently offering or that you would like to see us offer. And this is not multiple choice. You do have to enter in groups that you would like to see and be involved in. And it doesn't even necessarily mean we're not looking for
Yeah, it does
your
not have to
leadership,
be
just like
social. It can be more educational based. Tippy did a really good session at National on ageism, and so there's different experiences that planners have based on their age. So that's also like kind of an interesting, could be social group. For example, right now we don't have a lot of retired APA planners that are involved. So creating a group like that would be meaningful. Also, those planners that are retired now might want to get their FAICP. But if they're retired and they're not engaged anymore, then we're missing that opportunity to have them be recognized for the great planning work that they did when they were working.
I noticed kickball came up there. For those of you that don't know,
We are having a kickball.
we do have a kickball team. The Salt Lake area, Taylor has put together a kickball team that plays in the kickball league during the week on I think Wednesday nights. So
So
yes,
if
yes.
you
if you're
don't have planning commission on Wednesday night,
in the Salt Lake
play
area.
kickball. All right.
Okay. Question 3. What do we need to remember and consider as we explore our governance? What thoughts do you have that you'd like for us to know and be able to respond to and report about as we are on this journey?
So this can be positive or negative. You could, if there's something that you saw that we're doing that we should continue with, you could say, keep considering that. But if there's something we're missing, please let us know so we can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we were sorting T-shirts till midnight. So we're trying here.
Yeah, I struggled with PowerPoints today. I think our goal is to make sure the organization provides as much value as possible. And we just want to be able to understand everybody's perspective as far as what things are really important to you in the organization.
And I don't have current data on me, but I think what is our membership? 648, Nicole? Something like that. That was, can't believe I remember that. But for this conference alone, we have 248 attendees. For a spring conference, that is incredible. Like our attendance normally ranges between 100 and 125. So when we're looking at this, it's what we need to consider because we are growing also. Yes, include university faculty members as well as students. We definitely are working on one of the committee we need to consider is education. That might be underneath PDO programs, but education is definitely on there. Yeah, our connection with academia definitely needs to be stronger. Nicole does rock. Yeah,
So
cool.
This mentoring and training assistance, that is one of the things that we've talked a lot about is providing more leadership training, not just planning base specific, but just general leadership training is something that's really a valuable asset we can add and help members obtain.
All right, I don't know if we can scroll down, but
Oh, I don't know.
I think we're good.
Okay. So we do have another question.
This is our last one. Is it our last? Or no, there's two more.
I think, yeah, there's this one and another one. So how can APA Utah provide a better value and benefit to you? If there's something specific that we can be offering or should be offering and we're not, let us know. And this may come up as a question and answer. On Slido. The format was a little different.
I'll give an example. Like the emerging planner group
really?
did not exist before I was in college. It was something that me and a few others demanded for. Jordan Catcher came down from Oregon. They have an awesome emerging planners group and was like, Utah, why don't you have one? That's a kind of an example of something that was missing, but now we have, with a little push from a few people. Keep doing what we're doing.
Okay.
Better communication. If whoever said that, do you mind expanding on that? Is it, or if you can come find me later, I would. Oh.
That's inside baseball.
We've talked a lot about that as a board, and it's the way we communicate so that members know where to go, and it's more timely, and we get that out. Right now, I think we're working kind of off of a Band-Aid approach from how we've done it before. So communication, I think, is the vision for the future to grow membership.
Looks like we're running out of time here.
Yep.
And we
So-
can also post these after too.
Yes, so this presentation we've recorded it, we will be posting it and broadcasting it out. So there will be additional opportunity either to answer these questions, or if we didn't cover something that you have a question about or you have an idea, please let us know. We do not profess to know everything. We know there's blind spots, and that's why we want to have these conversations, is to help limit those blind spots, to make sure that we do have a full perspective, a full understanding of what you're seeing, what you need, and how we can benefit you.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
All
you very
right.
much.